All right, so this is my Week 11 NFL Power Rankings. Let's get started here. Start off with injuries. You guys can kind of look at this yourself. I do want to mention that Dak Prescott's going to be out for the season now, instead of just a few weeks. And Chris Olave is on the IR with a concussion, and they said he might be out for this season and potentially even his career. He's gone through a lot of concussions over the last 5 or so years. And then our top performances, you guys can kind of look at this. I did also include Jared Goff down here. He had 5 interceptions, so it's kind of a bad performance, but he also won the game. So that was interesting. I wanted to add that in here. Then swing off at 32. It's going to be the Giants. They're 2-8. This week they lost to the Panthers in overtime. They had a chance to win, but then Tyrone Tracy fumbles on the first play of overtime, giving the Panthers an easy field goal. This was not a very good game. It was a close game between the Giants and Panthers, but you know, it wasn't a very good game because both those teams are really bad. Third one is the Raiders at 2-7. They had a bye this week, so they're just going to stay in the same spot. Number 30, Tennessee Titans dropping 3 spots. They're 2-7. They lost by 10 to the Chargers. Will Levis actually looked pretty solid here in this game, but I don't expect that to continue. He was out for a couple weeks with injury. He came back and played a pretty solid game himself, but I would think going forward he's gonna regress again. Number 29, Dallas Cowboys have moved down 3. They blown out the Eagles. 5 turnovers here in this game. Trey Lance and Cooper Rush both pretty bad. I do think they're still going to be starting Cooper Rush this next week, but I would not be surprised if Trey Lance ends up taking over the starting job, just because if Cooper Rush is going to be bad, might as well give the younger guy Trey Lance at least couple of games to start to try to at least gauge whether or not he can be a decent backup. Because if Trey Lance gets a few starts this season and still plays very, very bad, he will likely be out of the league by the end of this season. Number 28, Carolina Panthers, 3-7. So they did beat the Giants this week, 20-17 in overtime. Like I said, they had a game-winning field goal in overtime because the Giants fumbled it and gave them a very easy opportunity. But still, a really solid game. Defensively, they played good. They played the Giants, so not very hard. And offensively, Bryce Young wasn't very good, but Chuba did about everything for their offense. 28 or 27 will be the Patriots. They're 3-7. They ended up winning against Chicago Bears this week, 19-3. A very good win there for them. Looked really impressive defensively. Number 26, Jacksonville Jaguars are 2-8. They lost this week versus Minnesota Vikings, 12-7. But Trevor Lawrence also did not play. Mac Jones played. He didn't play very good. He only put up 7 points, but their defense held the Vikings to 12 points total. So I do think if Trevor Lawrence played, he'd probably win this game. So that's why they're not going to drop too much, even though they are 2-8. Because I do think if Trevor Lawrence would have played, they probably would have won. And Trevor Lawrence is supposed to be back here this week. 25, the Jets dropping 3 spots. They got blown out by the Cardinals, 31-6. Not a good performance from anybody on their team, really. They're sitting here at 3-7 right now. They're likely going to have to win out. Typically, to make the playoff race in the AFC, you got to get to about 10 wins. Maybe you could squeak in with 9 in some cases. But right now, the Broncos are sitting at the last wildcard spot at 5-5. So they have to at least get to 9 wins, which means they got to go 6-1 the rest of the season. It doesn't look very likely for this Jets team. Number 24, New Orleans Saints. They're going to jump 8 spots here. Had a very good win, 20-17 versus the Falcons. With all their injuries that they do have, they still played very, very good offensively. Marquez Valdes-Scantling is somebody they signed a few weeks ago after he got cut by the Bills, and he had over 100 yards and I believe 2 touchdowns here in this game. So if he can be a difference maker for this offense, they have a chance to potentially go on a run here and maybe make some noise in their division. 23, Indianapolis Colts 4-6. Not a very good week. Joe Flacco has not played good the last couple of games when he's been starting, and they did officially turn back to Anthony Richardson right now, just because Joe Flacco experiment obviously has not worked. He's gone 0-2 his last 2 games, playing pretty bad. So might as well give it back to Anthony Richardson. Hopefully Richardson steps up a little bit from where he was before he got benched. But they lost by 10 points to the Bills. So on paper, it doesn't sound horrible. But Joe Flacco, I think, had 3 interceptions, at least two. He did not. He just did not play very good. 22 around, they move up 2 spots, even though they did have a bye this week. Some of the other teams right above them ended up losing. 2-7, not a very good record, but I do think they have potential with Jameis Winston, with Nick Chubb being healthy, that they have the potential to be a decent team still to round out this back half of the season. Number 21, Bears dropped 2 spots. They got blown out 19-3 versus the Patriots. Still 4-5, very much alive in the NFC playoff race, but they're going to have to do better offensively. You can't be putting up 3 points against the Patriots and expect to be a playoff team. Number 20, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, 4-6. This week, they had a close loss, 23-20 versus the 49ers. They've had a lot of close losses this season, even with all the injuries that they do have. I do kind of feel bad for them. I don't think they're going to be good enough here to make the playoffs, but right now they're still being very competitive in all their games. They're just falling on the short end of the stick every time. 19, Miami Dolphins move up 2 spots after beating the Rams 23-15 on Monday Night Football. Pretty good game from them here. Tua looked solid. He did have an interception, I believe, so that was obviously not great, but he did pretty good. Again, this team is going to be hard for them to make the playoffs because, they got to get to at least 9 games, which means they got to go at least 6-2 the rest of the season. Potentially doable, but it's going to be difficult unless this offense can actually be elite. Because putting up 23 points is decent, but they need to be an elite offense if they want a chance to make a run here for a playoff push. Number 18, Los Angeles Rams. They do drop 2 spots. They did just lose to the Dolphins, but I do still think they're better than them. They're 4-5 right now, so still have a better record. Than the Dolphins, and I believe in this team to make a better comeback towards the back half of the season than I do the Miami Dolphins. Number 17, Seahawks at 4-5. This week, the Seahawks had a bye, so not really too much movement here for them. 16, Denver Broncos. They do move up 2 spots after losing to the Chiefs 16-14. Very great game from the defense. They didn't force a single turnover, but they still held the Chiefs to a bunch of field goals when they got into the red zone. So that was good there, and they should have won this game. They had a game-winning field goal attempt from 35 yards out. It just ended up getting blocked by the Chiefs. So they were this close, literally this close to winning this game against the Chiefs. So I do got to move them up a couple spots, even though they did end up losing. Sorry. Cincinnati Bengals at 15. They're 4-6 right now. They did lose 35-34 versus the Ravens. They're only 1 game away from the playoff spot here in the AFC, right below the Denver Broncos. So very well could find himself coming and making a good push towards the back half of the season. But a win here against the Ravens would have done wonders for them. They played really good, just happened to lose by 1 point. Number 14, Houston Texans, minus 2 spots here after they ended up losing this week 26-23 versus the Lions. They were up 23-7. They forced Jared Goff to throw 5 interceptions, and they still ended up losing. They got outscored 19-0 in the second half. Not a good look from this Houston Texans team. Number 13, Los Angeles Chargers at 6-3. I believe this was their best start to a season since like 2017 or 2018. I think I saw that stat somewhere. They've been doing really good. They haven't had a really tough strength of schedule really to start the year, but they've been doing really good in the games they need to. A 10-point win versus the Titans doesn't look great on paper, but they were also up by 17 in most of this game, and then they let up a garbage touchdown with like 2 or 3 minutes left. So they were really dominating this game. Number 12, Atlanta Falcons. They're going to drop 3 spots, sitting at 6-4 right now. They lost this week, 20-17 versus the Saints. Not a good game this week. You should not be losing to this lowly Saints team, who last week I literally had as the worst team in the league. So theoretically, they did lose the worst team in the league. But now that Saints team looks a lot better. This Falcons team, again, they don't play very good, but they're still certainly one of the better teams in the NFC. Number 11 is going to be the Green Bay Packers at 6-3. They bye this week, so again, they're going to kind of stay exactly where they were. The 10 Arizona Cardinals. They move up 3 spots. They're currently lead in the division. they do have some competition in there for sure. The Niners are only half a game back. They're 5-4. The Rams are 4-5. Seahawks are 4-5. So all the other teams are still very much alive in this playoff race. But the Cardinals have the upper hand right now, which is really good for them. And this week they demolished the Jets 30-6. Kyler Murray had 2 rush touchdowns. Very good game this week. Number 9, I do have the 49ers. I think they're slightly better than the Cardinals right now. Whenever those guys play each other, I believe they already played each other once, if I'm not mistaken, and the Cardinals did win. So the Cardinals have the upper hand, but they do play each other in Week 18, which very well could be a deciding factor for the division at that point. But the Niners did play pretty solid this week, 20-20 win versus the Bucks, and Christian McCaffrey is returned. Number 8, Minnesota Vikings dropped 1 spot. Currently 7-2. They barely won against the Mac Jones-led Jaguars, so that's why they've dropped 1 spot, even though they did win 12-7. It's going to be the Washington Commanders. They drop a couple of spots here after losing by 1 point to the Pittsburgh Steelers. They let up a late touchdown pass to Mike Williams, and they did not do anything on their last possession to potentially, win the game. Still a very close game. It's a very good team. So I'm not going to, fault them too much. They're still doing way better than anyone thought they would be to start this season. Number 6, Philadelphia Eagles jump up 2 spots after demolishing the Cowboys 34-6. They forced turnovers. This team played really good on both sides of the ball and have looked really dominant the last couple of weeks. Number 5 is going to be the Pittsburgh Steelers. They move up 1 spot. They're 7-2. They just beat a really good Washington Commanders team, so they're looking really, really good. Mike Williams didn't really make much of an impact in this game until last play where they got a touchdown pass to him. That's the only reception he had all day, but it was one of the most important receptions of the entire season for him and for the Steelers, for the matter. But the Steelers have a very tough path to their division. They're 7-2. The Ravens are 7-3. So it's going to be a bloodbath between those 2 teams. I don't believe they played each other at all yet this season. Still have 2 matchups against each other. Those 2 are likely going to be what sides the division. Number 4 is going to be Buffalo Bills. 8-2. A good game this week. Ended up winning 30-20 versus the Colts. Keon Coleman is going to be out this week against Kansas City, so they're going to have to hope that other guys, Amari Cooper, hope that he makes a big difference here this week against Kansas City. It's going to be a tough task for sure because Kansas City is still undefeated. But the way that the Bills have been playing recently, they're probably the biggest threat so far this season to upsetting or defeating Kansas City. I think the Bills are technically the favorite in this game because they are at home. But I still do think if they win, it's going to be an upset because the Chiefs are. Baltimore Ravens, they're 7-3, ended up beating the Bengals 35-34. Very close win against a good Bengals team. The record isn't good, but on paper, they're good, and they've been playing a lot of close games against good teams as well. So even though the Bengals are only 4-6, I still think it's a good win here for the Ravens. Yeah. Number 2 is going to be the Kansas Chiefs. They're 9-0. I cannot put them at number 1 just because they didn't play very good this week. They had back-to-back weeks now with no turnovers, so that's good for their offense. Still put up 16 points. It's 0 turnovers and only put up 16 points. That is very concerning for this team. They are getting healthier. Juju Smith-Schuster, Isaiah Pacheco, Charles Omenihu, I believe, are all returning to practice this week. So I don't think any of them are going to play against the Bills, but beyond that, they might play week 12 and for sure by week 13. So that could definitely help this team out offensively, getting Juju and Pacheco back, and defensively, they've been really good. And if they can get Charles Omenihu to add to that defense, that can make this team even better. But right now, they got a tough task against the Bills to stay undefeated. Number 1 is going to be the Lions, 8-1. They played like trash this week, and they still had a 16-point comeback, shut their team out at halftime, and and ended up winning this game, scoring 19 straight points in the second half to win by 3 points. Jared Goff threw 5 interceptions, and they were down 16 at halftime, and they still ended up winning this game. I don't know how they did it. It didn't make any sense, but they ended up winning, so I really can't drop them because, again, the Chiefs would be the team to move up ahead of them, but the Chiefs didn't really play that good either. So both teams played relatively bad games and still ended up winning. Next will be our game picks. Last week's hit for a 152 record so far. This is pretty good, if I do say so myself. Eagles Commanders here on Thursday Night Football should be another great Thursday night matchup. Last week it was Bengals Ravens. This week Eagles Commanders should be a bloodbath between these two teams. I'm going to take the more experienced Eagles here. Vikings Titans should be easy Vikings there. Packers Bears. Packers on the Bears, pretty much. Lions, Jags should be easy. Ravens, Steelers should be a very close, very fun game. I am going to pick the Ravens there, barely. Dolphins and Raiders, that should be pretty easy. Rams, Patriots shouldn't be too hard. Colts, Jets is my upset of the week. Anthony Richardson is back. I do think it would have been fun to see a Joe Flacco versus Aaron Rodgers matchup in the year 2024, but they are turning back to Anthony Richardson. I still do think they upset the Jets here. The Jets have been pretty bad. The Colts have been pretty bad too, but I do think Anthony Richardson coming off getting benched is going to at least have a pretty decent game and end up winning this. Browns over Saints. Both teams are pretty bad. The Browns here by a little bit. Niners Seahawks could be a fun matchup. I'm going to take the Niners because, again, they did get Christian McCaffrey back last week. And just getting another week for him should lead to them being even better this week. Falcons Broncos is an upset here too. But I'm taking the Falcons here. I just think they're better than the Broncos. I think it's close. I think Justin Simmons is going to have a pick on Bo Nix in his revenge game. That should be a very fun storyline there. Chiefs Bills, again, is going to be very close. But the Chiefs are still undefeated. I'm not picking against them until they end up losing a game. I'm going to take them here as an upset there. Bengals Chargers, I do believe, is also an upset. That should be a very fun game. I'm going to take the Bengals there. Just by a little bit. They had a tougher strength of schedule than the Chargers, so even though they have a worse record, I think they might be a slightly better team here. Texans Cowboys should be easy here with the Cowboys having Cooper Rush / Lance at quarterback. That's going to be a pretty awful Monday Night Football game. Next will be our races here. For MVP, Lamar Jackson moved up to number 1 now. Josh Allen moved down to number 2. Mahomes moved up to number 3. Jalen Hurts moved up to number 4. And then Jayden Daniels staying there at number 5. Offensive Player of the Year, Derrick Henry at 1, Saquon 2, Jamar Chase up to 3, Jettis down to 4, Lamar Jackson up to 5. Defensive Player of the Year, TJ Watt at 1, Chris Jones at 2, Trey Hendrickson move up to 3, Dexter Lawrence move up to 4, Passer 10 move up to 5. Comeback Player of the Year, Kirk Cousins stayed at 1, Joe Burrow stayed at 2, J.K. Dobbins stayed at 3, Kyler Murray moved up to 4, and Nick Chubb moved up to 5. Offensive Rookie of the Year, Jayden Daniels stayed at 1, Bo Nix moved up to 2, Drake May moved up to a lot to number 3, Marvin Harrison moved up to a lot to number 4, Malik Neighbors moved down to number 5. Right now, Caleb Williams, I believe, is number 6 or 7 on that list after being the early big favorite there. Defensive Rookie of the Year, you got Jared Verse staying at 1, Leonie Latu staying at 2, Quinion Mitchell staying at 3, Cooper DeJean moves up to 4, and Kamari Lassiter moves up to 5. Coach of the Year, you got Mike Tomlin. Last week he was not in the top 5. This week he's number 1. Dan Campbell stays at 2. Dan Quinn moves from 1 to 3 after a loss, after a loss there. Andy Reid moves up to 4, and Jim Harbaugh moves up to 5. So that is going for the video. Thank you for watching. Make sure to check back next week for updated power rankings list. And make sure to check out NBA videos as well.